The Taliban has allowed us to visit these areas because it wants to show that it is in control. But in our first moments...
Whoa, that's a lot of helicopters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Our escorts tell us to stop. We are now on the other side of America's war. In recent months, the U.S. has dramatically stepped up the number of airstrikes on the Taliban. The militant's flag makes us a conspicuous target. But we have no choice but to push on. Our first stop is a clinic that has been run by the Taliban since they took control of this area almost 2 years ago. A plaque at the door reveals it was a gift from the Americans in 2006. Suddenly, a young girl outside is hit by a motorcycle. A boy rushes over to help her. The driver is a Taliban fighter. He slings his gun over his shoulder and wanders over, apparently unconcerned. Life here is brutal. The girl is rushed inside, her frantic mother following behind.
Is she okay? Is she okay? Are you okay?
But no one seems as shocked as we are. The doctor gives her mother some painkillers and sends her away. After years of fighting here, he has seen much worse.
Who's in charge of the hospital? Who's managing it?
He explained that the Taliban manages the clinic, but the government pays salaries and provides medicine. This sort of ad hoc cooperation is becoming more and more common, and there have been other changes.
So this is something you wouldn't expect to see in a clinic under the control of the Taliban. It's like some kind of sexual health education, talking about condoms, other forms of birth control.
22-year-old midwife Fazila has worked under the Taliban and the Afghan government.
What has been your experience working under the Taliban here?
The Taliban never interfere in our work as women, she says. They never block us from coming to the clinic. In the waiting area, these women say it's war and poverty that makes their lives miserable.
Has life under the Taliban changed now from what it was before? No?
We are trapped in the middle, the woman says, and we can't do anything.
It's just so sad to see how desperate people are here. The women telling me they don't have enough food to eat, they don't have the proper medicines to treat their disabled children. All they want is peace and some improvement to their quality of life.
It's getting late and we need to get to our accommodation. The Taliban turn off cell phone service after dark. This is when we are most vulnerable.
Assalamu alaikum.
The next morning, we're taken to a madrasa, or religious school. Under Taliban rule in the 90s, girls were banned from going to school. But we find boys and girls studying.
Raise your hand if you know how to read. Okay, 1, 2, 3. You can read and write. Do you know what you want to be when you grow up? A doctor. Bravo. What's your favorite subject in school? Maths. You're smart.
Teacher Yar Mohammed splits his time between the front lines and the classroom. His AK-47 never leaves his side. The emirate has instructed education departments to allow education for girls of religious studies, modern studies, science, and math, he says. But there's a catch. Once they reach puberty, girls cannot go to school with boys. And the sad reality is that few in rural areas like this see women's education as a priority. The Taliban's focus now is on showing it can govern effectively. Across the country, the group has appointed shadow governors like Maulavi Haksar. For his security, Haksar is always on the move. When the villagers hear that he is visiting, they quickly line up to air their issues. There are disputes over money and land ownership. Your petition will be dealt with tomorrow, Haksar says. Corruption is rampant in the Afghan government. The Taliban has a reputation for delivering quick, if harsh, justice. The Islamic Emirate has laws, this man says. It has an Islamic Sharia system in place. Haksar agrees to sit down with us. His bodyguard listens for security updates on the radio. We start out by asking about the Taliban's brutal tactics and the U.S. concern that they could once again offer safe haven to terrorists.
Whether it's the Americans or ISIS, no foreign forces will be allowed in the country once we start ruling Afghanistan.
Are there real efforts being made to stop killing civilians?
Those responsible for civilian casualties are the ones who came with their aircrafts, artillery, B-52, and heavy weaponry.
In reality, the Taliban is responsible for thousands of civilian deaths in the last 3 years alone.
And what about these suicide bombings at polling stations, for example? These kill many civilians.
We deny this. This accusation is not acceptable to us.
There are small signs that the Taliban is moving with the times.
I listen to the radio, also Facebook and other media.
You're on Facebook?
Yes.
But it's clear that the fundamental ideology has not changed.
So if somebody is found guilty of stealing, you cut off their hand?
Yes, we implement the Sharia. We follow Sharia instruction.
And if somebody is found guilty of adultery, you will stone them to death?
Yes, the Sharia allows stoning to death.
As we're leaving the interview, the military commander for the district arrives, and a dispute breaks out about us. They should have brought a man, one of them says.
So the issue right now is that they don't want us to walk outside with the governor because I'm a woman. They think it's inappropriate.
We agree to follow the men at a distance, something I've never had to do in my career. The commander, Mubarez Mujahid, takes us to a nearby safe house to be interviewed privately. We are warned that political questions are off the table.
Do you want to see peace between the Taliban and America?
It would be better if this question was put to the spokesperson of the Islamic Emirate.
Do you feel like the Taliban is winning the war?
God willing, we are hopeful. We are supported by God.
He wants to show off his forces for our cameras. His men are gathering just outside the village. It is exceptionally rare and dangerous for dozens of fighters to congregate in one place.
I have been coming to Afghanistan for more than 10 years. I never imagined that I would be reporting from here in the heart of Taliban territory, but we're not going to stay long here because gatherings like this can be a major target for airstrikes.
But the commander says America's military might can't keep them from victory.
We are ready for any sacrifice. We are not scared of being hit. This is our holy path. We continue our jihad.
Most of these men have been fighting U.S. forces since they were old enough to carry a gun. The question now is, are they ready to put those guns down? Our visit with the Taliban is coming to a close. It's time to leave. For a large part of Afghanistan, the prospect of a Taliban resurgence remains horrifying. But for many here, it makes little difference who is in charge. After decades of war and hardship, they'll turn to anyone who promises peace.